We continue our conversations here in spring football with Saluki football coordinators, and it's now time to catch up with the special teams coordinator, Nathan Frame, as we are moving our way along here throughout fall camp. Coach Frame, welcome. It's always good to see you. I know we're catching up with you just after practice number 2, so you got to be in a great mood, right? I mean, it's all smiles right now for Coach Frame.
We're excited to be back out there, ready to dive into the film and see what we need to get fixed, get cleaned up. A lot of installs and getting a lot of new guys in the drill work for the first time. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun to get back out there.
Well, of course, with your group, and we'll dive into that specifically, just you've been here and been a part of this football program for so many years. Just now, as you get another year underneath your belt, just where are you at in terms of your comfortability level, your knowledge level, your finding out, like, hey, this is what works best here. And this is where, again, your voice just continues to get louder, stronger, and have more conviction about it.
Yeah, well, you're always continuously learning and growing. Comfortable, like, obviously comfortable at this place in the operation. That's part of it too. Like, how does this program operate with their special teams, practice schedule, meeting times, everything like that. So familiar with how we do things like that around here. So that learning curve, I'm used to. But scheme, like, figuring out what we do well here schematically, what works best drill wise to install our scheme, all of those things, I've become more comfortable with that and what works best here, but also not being comfortable and continuing to push our guys and push myself schematically of the adjustments we can make every single off season.
One thing I've noticed that you guys continuously do in my time around you, now getting ready to go on year 3, is especially when you look at all of your units, I mean, you want the best guys out there, even if they are primarily superstars on whatever side of the ball they are. They're going to be utilized in special teams in some way, shape, or form. Look, it's very early. You're in the spring. But when you look at that depth trying to be developed, when you look at main guys who, of course, are going to be huge for Coach Prawn on defense and Coach Hill on the offensive side, what has you most encouraged right now of just the talks within your meetings, the film sessions that you have that lead you to the capability of, I think we are continuing to work in the right direction as a special teams unit collectively?
I think it's the guys that, come up to me and like want to be core 4 guys. I think there's a lot of our starters and guys who get a lot of high reps on both sides of the ball that want to be out there on those units, and that's what you want. If that doesn't always mean they're going to be a great fit, but like their intentions of wanting to be out there, on those units is what you have to have. You got to have guys that are hungry to be out there to make an impact on different phases of the game. And we have to be good about putting them in positions, to make an impact. Just because they're your all-American wide receiver doesn't mean they're going to be an All-American on certain units. So like your best players need to play on special teams, yes, but you have to put them in positions to be successful.
Not everyone can be an All-American at everything like Pat Poore.
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's clear.
No doubt.
At least that's what he tells me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, whenever he's like, he was an All-American from long snapper to holder, kicker, tight end.
I think you're limiting him to just football.
Yes.
I mean, I think disc golf. I mean, anything. I think we could put out there. I mean, we go hunting for Bigfoot. He could be an All-American.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't just limit him to football.
Yes, and he's dying so much he could be a part of this conversation right now. Whenever this comes across his feed, look, your group last year was no doubt highlighted by Paul, and coming into the year, it didn't take much in the fall, especially, to know that Paul was going to be a huge factor within the kicking game because he could punt, kickoffs, and of course place kick as well. What's your conversations been like for Paul after a year where it's pretty clear he's become the guy and he can do so many things for you? What were your initial conversations with him in the off season and what they're like now, what you continue to work on here in the spring?
Yeah, the conversations have been good, and just he's a kid that wants to get better. no matter what phase that we're working on, what craft he's working on, to push himself, schematically, whether that's kickoff, like what we can do more, um, with that unit as far as kick direction, hang time, just ability to do different kicks. Same thing with punt. So now that we have kind of our base of like what he likes to do, number one, like that's you have to build around your specialists of what they're comfortable with, but just their comfort level. How can we expand that so we can do more? So we kind of have a feel for like what he likes to do, what he's comfortable with, what he's confident in, and now just those conversations of, these are the tweaks we can make that I think can help us, help you as well. So I'm super excited for him and our units kind of built around him for his versatility and what he can all do on all three of those units.
What I like about most about Paul is he's got that, I say aura about him, but he's got the right amount of ego that you need,
Hmm.
and he's a tremendous teammate as well. Like you can have a conversation with him. He knows who you are. He has such that great connection. That's why I just love the guy to death.
Hmm.
But also when it comes to play, like yeah, I know I'm good.
Yeah.
Like and that's hard to get that right combination.
Yeah, he's competitive. He's truly a football player, and that's what
Yeah.
we want to recruit in the specialist room. I think the same thing with, the long snapper we brought in, Ryan. Like we want football players in those rooms, guys who are competitive and guys that are going to be involved with the entire team, not just, specialists over there in the corner and they come out for their 5-minute period and then they go back to their corner. That's not what we want. We want our specialists to be involved in the tackling circuits with the defensive side of the ball. Those guys get ingrained into our team offensively, defensively, to be competitors, to be football players. So, yeah, he's got a good head on his shoulders. We're excited about him, just his confidence, competitiveness, like you said. So, all good things.
Look, is what we've talked so much about Paul, but even I think a guy like Tanner can get overlooked where he had some really good moments throughout practice and stuff in the fall where you're like, that's a guy who's got a lot of capability as well. How has he learned behind Paul? And look, as we all know, things happen when you go throughout the course of a season where Tanner, if called upon at any given time, he can be a guy that you guys and the team have confidence in.
This will be a big spring for Tanner. He'll get a ton of reps with the twos, kicking and punting. He's more of a kicker, but just from when he showed up last summer to now, his punting has really improved. So we're excited about that. But you have to have depth everywhere, and so him continuing to improve and just getting the reps too. He didn't get a ton of reps in the fall, so excited for him to be able to put up some film. He works extremely hard. He's a 4.0 kid. He's a strong kid in the weight
Yeah.
room. So no, we're excited about Tanner. Can't say enough good things about him. On and off the field. So as far as like confidence level in him and him taking his role seriously and wanting to grow and be better, you're not going to find anybody that works harder than Tanner.
The thing about special teams, Coach Frame, is there are moments where when things don't go right, they're clear and obvious that something did not work. But what may appear to be an obvious thing, it can be a minute detail in the process that gets overlooked where someone within that chain may get the majority of the blame, but there's something that you immediately notice that you as coaches go, well, I know they're getting the blame, but it's really not completely their fault. That's why it's the importance of special teams all down the line. Where do you have those conversations now of making sure you clean that up? As that was no doubt an area at times last year that reared its ugly head in some games that I know you guys as a staff and everybody notices that needs to improve going into the year.
Yeah, your special teams are only going to be as good as your specialists. I've said that before, but you have to build around your specialists. So it doesn't matter how So for punt, for example, if you have the best guard and tackles in the conference, if your operation isn't going to be clean, it doesn't really matter. And so that's why when we talk about building a scheme that our long snapper and punter feel comfortable with, because that's what's most important. Like those have to be on point for everything else to fall into place. And so shield, gunners, like your gunners don't necessarily make an impact if you're not able to even get the punt off, not having a clean operation. And so and specialists, like you said, it's pretty obvious when something goes wrong with the specialists. So getting that addressed, getting that cleaned up, uh, so we can have a clean operation, have a consistent operation. Um, personnel wise, it's not like those guys have done their technique, their craft, their whole lives. So a lot of it's mental, and so that's more so like us being able to respond to adversity because it's gonna hit. Just finding guys like and recruiting the right guys into the room as well that are able to respond to adversity correctly. So I feel good, and everybody feels good right now, but just the changes, and the guys kind of we brought in, the scheme that we've built around those guys, to get a ton of reps these next, 13 practices, to show that improvement. Looking forward to that.
And again, when I phrase something like this way, it could come across as a negative of speaking how maybe guys were previously that were here. But my point in bringing it up is the reason you are emphasizing those things is you truly believe, like take a guy like Paul, for example. He's a huge weapon. And you want that operation, you want those things to go smoothly because if they do go smoothly, you know that you have, as you said, you're only as good as the specialist that you have. You have really good specialists, and you want to make sure that that is shown on a consistent basis. That's what gets that the whole thing to it. And not to say you haven't had those guys in the past. That's why I'm alluding to. But when you have someone special of a talent like that, got to make sure you can take advantage of it when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be like anybody, like you want, excuse me, you want to be able to go on the attack. If you're worried about just like the absolute fundamental basics of an operation, it's hard to be the aggressor or to go on the attack or show different looks, different schemes because we're just focused on just the base, snap, punt, just
Yes.
like let's go cover a good hang. So the more confident we can be with those specialists to, like you said, like show those specialists off, show what they can do talent-wise, build around that, the harder you are to prepare for, and that's what we want to be.
This may be the hardest question I've asked you, Coach Frame, in this time here, but how hard is it to really judge Jace Clark without having his dad really just, get in the way? Because that's a really difficult dynamic that I just don't know that people really truly understand.
Dan, another guy, like, just likes to be involved.
Yes.
So we don't want to. We'll kind of beat around the bush here and not go just directly at him. We'll just talking about him in just weird ways that we know will get to him, and he'll be letting us hear about it later on. But Jace by himself does a great job, and knowing what Jace has been through,
Yes.
with who his dad is, couldn't say, that's a kid who knows how to respond to adversity, So we're excited for Jace. Excited Jace is in the room. We just, I usually have one-on-one meetings for 2 to 3 hours a day daily with him to kind of clear his head out from Dan, just refresh, let's regroup here. Just a regroup daily meeting, and he's the only one that gets that treatment too.
Yes.
So, yeah, exactly.
And we obviously say all that. We love you, DC, Coach Clark, Dan Clark, that is. Jace, say the adversity that no doubt he gets with his dad, but he really did. He had a tough fall, a really tough break for him right at the start of fall camp last year. And as everyone knows, his personality is a great person to have around, very upbeat. And when that gets taken away from you like it was for him, it's tough, and it's really good to see him bounce back this spring.
And it's a credit to him because he's getting reps this spring already.
Yeah.
So, tearing your ACL in fall camp, spring ball day one, he was out there. Now he can, not going live, but we can run an operation with him out there, which is a credit to how he, attacked his his rehab after surgery. So yeah, we're excited for him to get a spring ball in, a summer, fall camp in, to go out there and compete. at that snapping spot. But all the credit to him for putting himself in a position to be able to go out there and compete after having an injury like that during fall camp.
Coach Frame, we'll let you go. We appreciate the time. Thanks for letting me throw some darts at you here, some fastballs coming your way.
Absolutely.
And look forward to many more conversations
Yeah.
here throughout the spring and, of course, once we get to the fall.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.